Hi there, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Mr. Schwank, and welcome to Clio's Corner Geography. Today, we're taking a look at our world and how geographers study our planet. We all live on a really big planet. There is an enormous variety of environments and people on Earth. Our planet is so big, so vast, that it is nearly impossible to comprehend the size and scope of our planet without breaking it down into smaller chunks so that we can better understand how and why people live around the Earth. That's our big idea for today. We want to understand how geographers organize our world into understandable chunks so that we can study it and how humans adapt to live on our planet. Have you ever watched a nature documentary? You know, the kind where a film crew follows an animal around for a year or so and an intelligent sounding British voice or Morgan Freeman narrates what the animal is doing? What kinds of things does the narrator point out about the creature? How it makes a home for itself, how it finds food, how it protects itself, maybe how it interacts with other creatures socially or as prey or as a predator. Now, imagine if we had a film crew on you and your family. What would Morgan Freeman's voice say about you? And here we have the adolescent of the species leaving its home in the morning. Each morning, the community's adolescent members gather in a structure purpose-built by the community to store and educate them through the day while their parents are at work. Yeah, that's my Morgan Freeman, but sounds a little weird, right? But think about it. As the narrator focuses on your day-to-day activities, he or she would focus on describing the type of house you live in, the clothes you wear, the food you eat, the games you play, the environment that you live in general. But what if you live somewhere else? How would the narrator's description change? Would you live in a different kind of home if you lived in Arizona? Would you have access to different kinds of foods if you lived in Florida? Would you wear different types of clothes if you lived in Minnesota or California? Oh my God, that is so cute. Gotta get one of those. Anyway, it's exactly what geographers do. We study the physical characteristics of our world, and we use that to understand how and why people live the way we do. To accomplish this, geographers have a toolbox of tools, let's say, to help them study the world in 5 major ways. We look at the world through location, place, region, movement, and human environment interaction. At the very most basic level, you are currently, right now, as you listen to this, occupy a specific point in space on our world. Now, it's a really small point in space, but it's yours for now. If you moved even slightly to another point, you would be somewhere else. So unless someone is literally sitting on top of you right now, you should be the only one in your particular spot. So how can a geographer describe where you are right now? To do that, geographers describe your location by either using absolute or relative location. Both ways have advantages and drawbacks. Long ago, geographers created an imaginary grid of lines that we know of as latitude and longitude. We'll dig a little deeper on that in a later episode, but we can use latitude and longitude to identify a specific spot on the Earth that is unique from every other spot on our globe. There are other forms of absolute location as well. Your home address is a form of absolute location because it is unique to your location. No one else, except for maybe the people that live with you, have an address like yours. Relative location describes a location based on the features that are around it. It's a very descriptive way to describe a location based on common, easily identifiable features that are around it. Both ways of describing location have benefits and drawbacks. If you need immediate medical assistance, you don't want to have to provide a description of how to get to your house. What if in a stressful situation you forget to tell emergency responders to turn at an important road? You want to be able to tell them a specific address and know that responders can pull up a map and know exactly where to go. Can you imagine if pilots flying a commercial airliner was told, well, you just take off, and when you see the lake below you or the water, you know you're almost to Hawaii? I'm pretty sure we're all going to die. Instead, airliners just punch in a set of coordinates and know exactly what direction to fly and for how long. Alternatively, can you imagine if you wanted to go to a friend's house, and when you ask them where they live, they replied, 41 degrees, 52 minutes north latitude, and 87 degrees, 26 minutes west longitude. Like, duh, don't you know where that is? In that case, you need to use relative location. You need something that describes how to get to your friend's house, like take Highway 46 towards Columbus. After you get through Nullbone, you will see a church on your left as you go up a big hill. There's a house that always puts a ton of Christmas lights out each year. There's a road on the left there called Nelson's Ridge. Turn on that road. You'll go around a few curves before you see a scrapyard on your right. Slow down because there's a gravel road on your left with a large tree on the corner. You get the idea. Interestingly, our devices and apps like Google Maps use both absolute and relative location. Based on the absolute location of a spot, like an address, Siri will tell you where to turn and how far to go. So we use location every day, right? Well, once we're at a location, we can look around and see what kind of place we are in. The theme of place is used to understand what a location is like, the features of an area that make it unique. If you are in a location and you look around to see hills, trees, and lots of natural beauty, you might be in a place called Brown County, Indiana. If you look around and see lots of tall buildings, busy streets, and a large marble monument, you might be in a place called Indianapolis. Or if you look around and see lots of exotic animals that you can learn about, you might be in a place called the Indianapolis Zoo. So places can have both physical or human features that make it unique. Lastly, it's important to realize that places change over time. Our school was built in 1981. Before that building was there may have been some houses or a farm field on that location where our school sits now. It was a different place. In the future, our school system may build a new building. And when you drive by with your kids or grandkids, there will be a new set of buildings or apartments on that location. And you may say to them, when I was your age, there was a school there, and that's where I went to school. I think a lot about places. Sometimes I struggle because I don't want places to change. My dad used to work in the school administration building next door, and I practically grew up there. I have lots of good memories growing up there, and I don't want to see it torn down or used for something else, but eventually in my lifetime, it might. It's always important to remember that places have to change to meet the needs of the people who live there. When that building is no longer capable of having a school corporation administration working in there, it's got to go. Something else has to take its place. So the last way that we can organize the physical world is through studying regions. Just like how places are a bunch of individual locations with similar features, regions are just really large areas of land with similar features. There are lots of different kinds of regions, and the easiest ones to identify are physical regions. It's easy to identify regions based on the environment, like a mountain region or a desert region or a grassland or marine region, but there are others. Geographers also group regions into three major types: formal, functional, and vernacular. Formal regions are large areas of land with clear physical or man-made boundaries. The North American continent is a world region with clear boundaries where the land ends and the ocean begins. The state of Indiana is a national region with a clear man-made boundary that specifically marks where Indiana stops and surrounding states start. State and county boundaries are also more than just a formal boundary. They also serve a purpose or a function. If you live inside the formal boundaries of Brown County, you have certain rules that you have to follow that maybe other people in surrounding counties don't have to follow. These functional regions divide an area by purpose. Brown County schools, for example, have divided Brown County into regions that tell people what elementary school you will go to. Where you live determines if you go to one of the various elementary schools. Fire departments have divided the county into regions based on who would respond to an emergency. And finally, you have vernacular regions. And I know that's a strange word, but don't be intimidated by it. Vernacular is a word that just means everyday words that people use all the time. Vernacular regions are hard to define because they are the opposite of formal regions. If you just know if you're in the region or not. What does it mean to be in the Midwest? If you take a vacation to Florida, how far do you have to travel before you're in the South or even the Deep South? Where is New England or the Rust Belt? These are all regions of the United States, and we often use these descriptions to define a part of our country, but defining exactly where they are can be tough because there's not always agreement about who or where should be included. The other tricky thing about regions is that they can vary in size. A region doesn't have to be big. We have regions of our school, for example. It just needs to be a part of the whole area. The science hallway could be a region of our school because it has a unique use and similar features. And nothing else happens in that area of the school except the study of science. You could say the same thing about the cafeteria or the gym or other parts of the school. Remember our big idea. Geographers study the physical world to understand how humans live in it. So far, we've been very focused on the physical world, but the final two themes focus on humans. The theme of movement is pretty easy to explain. People move around all the time. Why and how humans move around is important to understanding the world. On the other hand, sometimes people are stopped from moving around because of human or physical barriers. Understanding, for example, why there were two totally separate populations of humans, one in Europe, Asia, and Africa, and a completely different population in the Americas, and how they came into contact is fascinating. How they developed and why it took so long for them to interact was because of the barrier of the Atlantic Ocean. We didn't have the technology needed to travel across that body of water. So that barrier was only overcome by creating new technologies, which allowed people to move around more freely. When people move around, geographers call that migration. Why do people move around? Well, maybe something bad happened where you were that caused you to move, or maybe something better is happening in another place that makes you want to go there. These are called push and pull factors. They're not hard to understand, but they are kind of easy to get flip-flopped back and forth. Push factors are things in the place you are now that force you to move. They don't always have to be bad, but they normally are. Let's say your house has been flooded, or a war is approaching, or a wildfire. Those things are events that you kind of want to get the heck away from, right? So hopefully being in social studies is not painful to you, and maybe you're even enjoying yourself. But when the bell rings, you must go to your next class. If I have to, I guess I'll have to push you out to make room for my next class. Pull factors are the other way around. Pull factors are typically good things that cause you to want to move somewhere different. Maybe there's nothing bad about the seat that you chose in the cafeteria before school, but when you see some of your friends sit down on the other side of the room, you might be pulled to move towards them because it would be better than where you are now. Maybe you have a great job, but another employer offers you more money, even though it means you have to move across the country. If you chose to take the job, you would have to migrate to that new place because you are responding to a pull factor. What if that job was in a different country? When you move there, you might start eating new foods or dressing differently. You might make new friends who would want to share with you some of their culture, food. Maybe you want to share your culture and food and dress with them. What about people from other nations that come here to live? Maybe they open up new restaurants that you can enjoy, or the community might celebrate a new holiday, or you might be invited over to share their lives. St. Patrick's Day is not an American holiday. It was started when many Irish immigrants moved over to the United States. So the result is when people move together is that they share culture traits. And this is what we call cultural diffusion, or the movement of culture traits between groups through trade and sharing. So the last theme we're going to discuss today is one of the largest themes, but it's not really that hard to explain. Human environment interaction is exactly what it sounds like. It answers the question that we started with about how you would make different choices if you lived in a different environment. Humans change the earth to suit our needs. I wanted a house built on the top of a hill, but to do that, my builder had to remove about 3 feet off the top of the hill in order to have enough space to build the house. We affected and adjusted the natural environment to suit my needs. We also use natural resources every day, and we pollute the earth with our trash. On the other hand, the earth also affects humans through changes in climate, weather, and natural disasters. It regularly drops to negative 20 degrees below zero in Fargo, North Dakota. As much as I might want to wear shorts that day, the environment is forcing me to make a different choice. I love sweater weather, but when I'm in Florida in July, it would not be a good idea. Human environment interaction explains why some people live in homes that with stilts off of the ground and why people in the desert typically do not live in log cabins. We are limited as to how we want to live by the environment that we have. So, just to wrap up, if our goal is to understand the world around us and our place in it, we have to look to geography. There are many ways that geographers view the world, and as we continue our adventures in geography, we will continue to use these themes to understand that as different as some people may be, they're simply no different than we are. They are just living according to the place that they find themselves in and making decisions about staying or moving based on the conditions they live around. Thanks for joining me on Clio's Corner. Today, I'll see you on our next adventure. Oh, buddy, that had better have been recording. Kinda don't think it was.